Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN, the Hub's fantasy football strategy show every Thursday, now at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. That's right, we did adjust the time. And if you're not here because you're thinking we're starting a half an hour later, I understand. But eventually you're going to catch on. We are 4 p.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern. By the way, that's the same as our waiver wire show with Ross and Casey on Tuesdays. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. I'm here only today with Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, and welcome, Dr. Dan Ratner. I haven't seen you in weeks. It's been weeks.
That's what he says, but I was here last week.
Oh, that's right. You were last week.
Must have blacked out.
A lot of stuff going on in football. Big game tonight, Dr. Dan Ratner. I'm so excited. The Raiders are playing I didn't say it. They're playing the Los Angeles Chargers.
You almost said it. Yes, without Justin Herbert.
And without Keenan Allen.
It's another great Thursday game.
Without everybody's sitting down, they don't want to play anymore. And the Raiders are starting Adrian O'Connell, and I think Devontae Adams is playing. He is playing. I'm looking at it, and it should be a barn burner. I suggest about 25 points would be scored.
Okay, now you called for a low score last week, and it ended up being a decently scoring game.
Oh yeah,
which was.
But remember, the Raiders scored 0 points last week, didn't they? Or no, they scored 7.
I will check on that. I'm not super aware of what the Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders did not have a good game last week. They lost to the Vikings. I think it was 3-0 or 6-0.
We should just string together a series of
and then
and the Raiders
did not score last week.
Yeah,
and the Chargers scored 7 points last week. So there you go.
Right, but it wasn't the lowest scoring. Neither were the lowest scoring game in the league last week.
Well, the Raider game was.
The Raiders game, was that the 3-0 game?
Yeah, that was the 3-0. Yeah,
that was the 3-0.
That was the lowest scoring game. Yeah.
I mean, that was astounding, I've got to say.
That was hard to watch. But yes. So tonight I don't see many points. I think it's going to be a boring game. I'll probably turn on some basketball, maybe some hockey. I know you're a big hockey guy too. Maybe I'll watch some hockey. But I'm not going to waste too much time in the game tonight, as much as I love Al Michaels. And I think it's funny how NBC told Al Michaels they don't need him for the playoffs. They're good. We don't need you because they have a wild card game. They always throw to Al Michaels one game, but they told Al, we don't need you. We're good. And Al's kind of upset about it.
Al Michaels is living the dream, except the dream is a nightmare. All of his games are Bears-Broncos and things like that.
I mean, my heart goes out to him.
Now, let's say hello to Albert Mariquin. Albert, kudos to you for catching on that we are now at 4 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Pacific. Thank you for being here. Please bring your questions. And, of course, we've got lots to talk about today. It's time for playoffs. Everybody says the Jim Mora line, but it never gets old. And,
every radio show, every talk show, I'll do the same. I'll do it. It's great.
Yeah, and here's the interesting thing. For most leagues, we're entering the playoffs. For one of our MFSN leagues, at least, our main MFSN league, we're still not in the playoffs. We're playing one more week. I didn't realize this. We got to change this for next year, Ross. We got a 14-team league with only 4 playoff spots.
Yeah, I did that on purpose just to make people work harder.
Just to mess with people? Well, it certainly made me work, and I'm trying to get in, but unfortunately,
I'll change it next year. I'll change it next year, and we'll put some monetary money on it too. We'll figure it out.
So let's first talk about the headlines from last week. As I always talk about it, the NFL is like constantly reinventing itself every week. You look at the situation and you think, this is not what I expected to happen. Tell me the headlines from last week.
The big talk in the NFL is Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito.
Cutlets.
That's his nickname. I mean, this guy, 3 wins in a row for the Giants. I'm sure Casey's pulling his hair out because that draft pick is getting lower and lower every week. This guy lives at home. His mom makes his bed, makes him dinner. They have huge like tailgating parties with his family with like tons of food, booze. I mean, it's like 100 people. Like they're all getting drunk before the game. I mean, it's craziness that's going on in New Jersey. But New Jersey loves this kid. I love him. I think it's a great story just because no one knew who he was. I had to look him up. I had no idea who he was before the season started. I really didn't.
No, I didn't before the season started. A couple of weeks ago, he got on my radar because he was starting. And
now he's on my fantasy team, and he's on my dynasty team, and I might keep him next year. You never know what I'm going to do.
Right.
But I mean, I think that's the best story.
Definitely the best story.
Josh Dobbs is benched. He's no longer the quarterback in Minnesota. I think in all honesty, I just thought it was a matter of time. I never thought he was that good.
Well, I mean,
I was rooting for him. I think he's an engineer. He's a very bright kid. And I love the story how he goes to team, and he always figures a way to win. I get it, but I think he's exposed a little bit, and I just think he's a backup quarterback. He's not going to win you any huge games.
Well, not only do I agree with you, but I think, this is kind of a cautionary tale. When you see a guy like Josh Dobbs and what he's been doing his whole career, and then suddenly you're expecting he's suddenly figured it out, it's just not that likely. I wish that it weren't. I am rooting for the guy. But the fact is, it's usually going to end up aligning in a way where people are who you thought they were who we thought they were. Speaking of another.
Exactly. I mean, who would think the two offensive players of the week would be from the Jets and Giants? Zach Wilson and Tommy DeVito. I mean, seriously. I mean, if you can bet on that in Vegas, it'd be like $1 million to 1. Okay, I want to make a parlay bet. Tommy DeVito to Zach Wilson as the offensive players of the week in their respective divisions. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, 100%. So let's talk about Zach Wilson. What did you see out there? I mean, he threw for
his mom is still a smoke show. We still love his mom. I mean, that's the reason I love Zach Wilson. I don't think he'll have a job next year. I would keep him as a backup. People hate him in New York. I don't think he's as bad as people think he is.
Ross, didn't he say he didn't want to return to the starting position? Did you hear this?
And Aaron Rodgers got involved and protected the kid. And I think somebody had a talk with him and said, listen, if the coach wants you to start, your ass is starting. And,
that's a bad sign when you don't even want to start.
His feelings were hurt, because he was pulled as the starter. His little ego was bruised.
Right.
And I think Aaron Rodgers came to save the day.
Yep.
And I think he had a great game last week. But now they go to Miami. They're playing Miami in Miami this weekend. It's going to be a tough task for him. But Miami's defense isn't that good, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Now, a couple other headlines I think we should talk about. You sent around a text in our group about Bill Belichick.
It's a rumor. It's not done. But I think when the season's over, I see Belichick leaving.
I think we all thought that. I thought you were saying it was confirmed. So
that's what the headline said, and then I checked around. It was just a rumor.
It was clickbait.
But where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yep. I mean, it's likely going to happen, but it's a big deal if it's confirmed. I mean, he's one of the legendary.
I think he'll go to the Chargers because the Chargers have some good players, and he wants to break Shula's record. So,
yep.
All that being said, he's not going to go to Carolina. He's not going to go to some team that's not going to win any games. He wants to go to a team that's so much established that has a chance to win 9 or 10 games.
Yeah, and he wants to break that record in 2 seasons, or maybe
not
going to do it in 1.
No, exactly.
Okay, Albert Marquand has a question: Tua or Stafford this week?
Stafford's been playing great. He really has. I mean, Stafford to me, they're at home against Washington. I'm not going to say the R word. You're not going to get me on that. But they're playing the Commanders at home. And Stafford they have great receivers, and he's at home. Tua's at home against the Jets. The Jets defense is still, I love Sauce. I like the Jets defense. That's a great question. If I had to pick one to start, I would probably start Tua just because, but it's hinged on Tyreek Hill playing. If Tyreek Hill doesn't play, I don't start Tua.
I think that's a great way to look at it.
If Tyreek Hill plays, Albert, you start Tua. If he's not playing, you start Stafford. But they're both good starts. I like both those guys. But
I totally agree. And this is the time of year where we have certain phrases we say. I would say in this case, don't get too cute. If Tyreek Hill's playing and Tua's playing at home, even though it's the Jets, I say play him. I think Stafford is a great play, though, so you can't lose either way.
To me, I mean, he's been if you look at his stats the past 3 games, he's been doing great. I mean, bravo. He's 35 years old. He's playing great,
and he's got a great supporting cast. I mean, Puka has been amazing.
Puka's going to be in fantasy football next year, at least in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, a little later in the show, we're going to talk about where we think people are going to go.
Oh, I love that.
Go this year, next year, because that's
okay. I love that. It's like I'm an Astradamus.
Exactly. All right. So we don't know what's going to happen with Belichick, obviously, but we're all speculating, probably on his way out. What did you think about the Bears destroying the Lions the way they did? What do we make of the Lions?
I don't take the Bears lightly. I don't bet against Fields. I think Fields is
Yeah.
very dangerous. I mean, this guy, he's angry. I mean, he's angry because the new regime that took over for the Bears, they want to get rid of him, and I think they gave him a notice.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to prove that he's a starting quarterback in the NFL, and I believe he is.
No, and bravo to him, because he's showing up to do it. And in the NFL, people can have very short careers if they don't show up and show it. Speaking of short careers and showing up, tell me about Jake Browning. You're a Bengals fan. What's this guy doing?
Jake Browning, I mean, I saw him play a lot in college. He played at Washington, and he was there I think he was a starter there for 3 years. So I'm a Pac-12 guy.
Right.
And he was good in college. I mean, these Pac-12 quarterbacks that play, they play the pro set, and they play, they play pro style. They're not doing the wishbone formation. They're playing like real football. And this guy, when Burrow got hurt, what Burrow said immediately in interviews, he said, "Listen, Jake Browning's really good. We're in good hands. I have full confidence in him." And if you notice the difference between between Burrow and your guy Watson in Cleveland,
wasn't my guy.
Well, you're in Cleveland, Ohio, so I got to say,
I do live here, and I love Cleveland.
And you've been to some Browns games, so I got to say, okay, I know he's not your guy.
Yeah,
so
you can say,
but Burrow's on the sidelines with the headset. I mean, he's helping out. He's telling Browning how to do things. Watson's in the stands watching the game with a bunch of hoodlums. I mean, he really is. I mean, it's not. I'm not making this up. I mean, it's like night and day. I mean, it's like Watson is not a team player. He doesn't care anything but about himself and getting massages. And it's ridiculous what's going on in Cleveland, because Joe Falco looks great. I love that guy. I mean, he's another big story. Let's talk about him.
A huge story, right? I mean,
you live in Cleveland. I mean, what's the story? I mean, he just put him on the 53-man roster today.
Well, I mean, and people love him already, and it's not a surprise. I mean, not only is he a professional quarterback, but he's a leader. I don't know if you guys...
He really is.
If you see the speech after the last game, this guy, I mean, I honestly, I'd rather just, if we could, I'd just bench Watson and play Flacco.
I think Watson's the biggest waste of $240 million I've ever in history. I mean,
that phrase,
when they signed him, as soon as they signed him, you were done with the Browns. I know you, and I know you were like very upset.
I was teetering on being done with the Browns even before then, but it did not help. Well, the thing, there's multiple reasons that I'm not in on the Browns, and if a team doesn't do well for a fan base for long enough, it's a problem. Like I don't like fair weather fans, but if you're putting a truly bad product out there for 20 years, I'm not going to put up with that. Meanwhile, the Browns, I had this discussion with some friends of mine, because the Browns are having lots of injury problems, and everybody's saying, "Oh, the Browns are getting
their defenses." Yes, their defenses. They were one of the top 5 defenses.
100%.
And now they're not. They're getting destroyed.
But I'm going to give you an inside scoop, because I once went to a physical therapist in Cleveland who was affiliated with the Browns, and he was the single worst physical therapist I have ever been to. So
was one of these guys? Okay, sit down. I'll crack your back. You're good. Get out of here.
I wish that had been the case. They're setting these guys up for failure. They're making them feel like they're so delicate, and they actually get injured more. That's a whole other story. But the Browns, if they can make the playoffs, what do you think about Kevin Stefanski?
Right now, they are making the playoffs. If the season ended today. I like what he's doing. I mean, again, I think he's patching everything up. I mean, he lost a starting quarterback. He lost a lot of his defense. He lost a starting lineman. I mean, but I love Mora. I love Cooper. I love their receivers. I really do. I love their tight end. I mean, their team is all around. They're pretty good. It's just staying healthy. And Joe is he hasn't played football in a couple of years. And he's, and he can't run. I mean, let's be honest. He sits in the pocket, and he's a statue. So when you're playing defensive line, you can just key up and go after these guys like that. But his offensive line's giving him time. And I think the Browns, I'm rooting for them just because I like Joe Flacco. I really do.
Yeah, Flacco's a guy that I can get behind. I might jump back on for a bit and see how it goes, but I don't know. I'm wary.
Okay. Well, I'm rooting for Cleveland. I hate
I'm
Pittsburgh.
100% rooting for Cleveland.
Pittsburgh's horrible. Pittsburgh plays Indy this weekend. They're going to get beat. That game's on
I
Saturday.
mean,
And
they
they're going to
lost
get
to New
beat by
England.
Indy, and Minshew's going to have 3 touchdowns, and Pittsburgh's defense is not very good, and we'll see what happens.
Is Tomlin in any trouble?
No.
I don't think so.
I think if he gets fired, almost every team would want him. I would love to have him.
If Tomlin gets fired, then
he hasn't had
fired him needs to be fired.
He hasn't had a par 500 season in his career.
Yeah, he's
about that.
He's a great
his whole
coach.
career, and they never, their draft picks have been. I mean, Mitch Trubisky was the number 2 pick overall. I mean, horrible. Horrible draft picks. Look at this.
Terrible. All right, let's jump to another headline. I want to know what you think about Patrick Mahomes. This past weekend, he was disputing a call after the game. Many people thought he came off very, very badly in that.
He did. I mean, must be this like all-American guy with the hot wife and the kid and everything else, and all of a sudden it doesn't go his way, and they called an offsides, and the guy was offsides. I said, you pitch, I proved it.
Right. No,
and he was offsides. The ref made the right call. He's not going to call it because it's Patrick Mahomes. Listen, I know football is a game of inches. I get it. But your guy you should be mad at Tony if you're mad at anybody.
Yeah, right. He was offsides.
Idiot.
Yep. And meanwhile, you just got to have some grace about it. It is interesting, with Mahomes. You wonder, is he starting to get entitled because he's won?
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Seems that way.
100%. Entitlement is a great word.
But it's sad because he's such a likable guy.
It's a bad thing.
Or at least he was.
I mean, I think it's going to humble him a little bit. I think
it will.
And I think them not being the pride of the AFC anymore and the favorites anymore. I think that's a big thing for him.
I do think this is one of the reasons people loved Tom Brady, though. No matter how much he won, he still had some humble. At least he came across humbly to me, certainly for what he was. All right, let's go to. I want to know about what you think about the Broncos, and the season they've put together. I mean, when they started off, it was a disaster. They had that horrible game against the Dolphins, and obviously the Chargers are hobbled and in a bad spot. So
their coaches gonna be fired by the end of the year. Chargers are supposed to win 10 games. They're not going to win 9 or 8. But Broncos started. I mean, you and I both said beginning of the season they're done.
Mm-hmm.
And Peyton just, you know what? I
got to give credit to Peyton.
Give credit.
Yeah. I mean, he's clearly doing something right. Okay, we got a question.
But the Broncos are playing great. I think they'll make the playoffs, and I don't think they'll win this week, though. They play Detroit.
Yep. Two more headlines that I want to talk about, but first let's get to a question. Jacob Anders says, I'm in a gross spot. If Jacobs is out, my best options would be Abdullah, Miles Sanders, Tyler Algier, Khalil Herbert, or Damian Pierce, PPR. That is a gross spot.
Okay, so let's talk about Miles Sanders had 10 rushing attempts to 70 yards. Tyler Algiers has been sharing carries with Bijan Mustard all season. He's been getting the ball. He really has.
Yeah.
Herbert had 4 attempt carries last week, so I'll throw him out. Pierce has not been playing much either. I mean, so let's Abdullah forget about. Sanders or Algiers. Who do you like?
I would go with Algier myself. I like the Falcons a little bit better, and I like that running back a little bit better. And that's it is a little bit of a dart throw, Jacob, and that sucks. But sometimes,
I think Algiers too. I think Algiers gets the ball on the goal line, and I think he'll a lot more than Bijan. Bijan does not get the ball on the goal line. He really doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think Algier is not a terrible play, actually.
No, I would take Algiers, and then for some reason, if Algiers can't play, he'll play. But Miles Sanders is my number 2 guy there.
I would say so too. I mean, if there was an injury in the Bears backfield, I think more about Khalil Herbert, but they got 3 guys there. It's just too much. Okay, back to some headlines. Jacob, let us know if we helped you out there enough. If you have follow-up questions, let us know. The Cowboys destroyed the Eagles. What's going on with the Eagles and what's going on with the Cowboys? I mean,
the Cowboys have a tough game this week, baby. They go to Buffalo. The whole month of December for Buffalo are playoff games. I mean, they got to win if they want to make the playoffs. They really dug themselves a hole. Mm-hmm. I think the Cowboys are going to lose this week. The Cowboys, yeah, exactly. The Cowboys are actually playing great football. Dak Prescott right now is the odds-on favorite to win the MVP. And I think the Cowboys, to me, if they have home games, because they haven't lost at home this year, I think they can win the NFC if they get the home field advantage. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
But it just depends. If they play San Francisco in Santa Clara, I don't think they could beat them in Santa Clara. But in Dallas, I think they can.
So, and having just beaten the Eagles, they've now pulled into a tie for the most wins in the NFC. I think the 49ers have the edge right now in terms of tiebreaker, but I'm actually not totally sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles, you know what? They're not the same team they were last year. I know they're the same players, but I just feel their rushing game is not playing up to par, and it's not the rushing game they had last year. I don't want to mention a player that wears number 0, I believe, on the Eagles, because I know it's a trigger for you. And he has the same last name as a famous pop singer that dates a Kansas City Chief. But I'm not going to mention his name. Because it's a trigger. I know something crazy will happen.
You can say DeAndre Swift. It's fine. I'm better.
Okay. You got therapy. Okay. So
I just have a new trigger.
Okay, I'm not going to say it. So, yes, I think the Eagles are on the downfall. I don't think they're the team that everyone thought they were going to be beginning of the season. I think the pride of the NFC right now, of course, is San Francisco. I think they're the team to beat. And good luck, everybody, beating them in the playoffs. That's all I can
listen,
say.
I mean, last week I said I think the Eagles are the team to beat, and I know, again, I say the NFL changes every week, but it's partly because we get so much new information every week, and it's not just that the Eagles lost; it's how they're losing.
Brock Montana can be MVP too, and then McCaffrey can be Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, that can really happen. But
sure.
I think Tyreek Hill is going to he'll have something to say about all this stuff too when it's all said and done. He's having a great year.
All right, one more headline, and then we'll move to start sit or surprises of the year, some other topic. Okay. But what do we think of Will Levis? He led a comeback this past week.
Yeah,
a pretty big one. And
oh my God, that was amazing. I mean, he did it like on prime time, and he was unbelievable. Everybody counted them out. I mean, it was unbelievable, that game. Will Levis, first of all, he's built like the guy's like, his veins are popping out of his arms. I mean, the guy's built really, he's built like a linebacker.
It's the mayonnaise in the coffee.
I mean, he's a beast. But yeah, I mean, I'm a believer in him. I think DeAndre Hopkins loves him, I'm sure, because his career is revitalized now. And it's a great story. Second round, He dropped to, and University of Kentucky. I mean, this guy, and Derrick Henry's playing better now because of him. So I like Tennessee's not going to make the playoffs, but I like Will Levis. Yes.
No, but they're 4-2 at home. They have a good coach, and if they've hit on something in Will Levis, they really got something. So let's turn. This is obviously a fantasy show, so we're trying to evaluate these players in terms of whether they're going to be valuable in the playoffs. Playoffs. So I wondered if you have any start sit advice for people out there. When they're looking at their lineups,
Well, you got to give me some examples. You just can't go start sit advice. I mean, we can go through. I mean, I think a good start this week. I think Jalen Hurts is playing in Seattle this week. I think that's my number one start. I think Hurts is going to be a great game.
Most teams who have Jalen Hurts are going to start him, right? I mean, who's going to be benching Jalen Hurts? So and also quarterbacks, I think are much easier to figure out who to start. So let's talk about like more back end running backs that you think are good plays that people aren't really looking at. Well,
when the quarterbacks, again, I think Jordan Love plays Tampa Bay this week. I think he'll have 3 touchdown passes. So
he's also really emerging as a.
I think the Tampa Bay defense playing in Green Bay, I think they're going to have major problems, and I see Jordan Love having a really good game. But some of the back end running backs, I mean. Zach Moss, I know he's not really back end, but he was on the back burner.
He did have a bad week last week, which
I think he's going to pick it up this week against Pittsburgh. He's at home. They're playing the Steelers, whose defense isn't that great. It's not the steel curtain anymore in Pittsburgh. So I like him a lot. I think Zeke Elliott he had 22 rushing attempts last week. And this week they go against Kansas City, and I think they'll be running the ball against Kansas City a lot. They're not going to try to pass it too much. So I think Zeke will get the ball either with receiving or rushing attempts, but I like Zeke a lot. And then I'm just trying to think like who else I really like in the back burner. I mean, this is a tough start, but he'll get a lot of handoffs. Is James Conner of Arizona. I know they play the 49ers. It's at home. But I think James Conner is like he's their main guy. So anything near the goal line is going to be James Conner.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I'm comfortable with a guy who's just going to get it on volume at the very least.
Yeah. Jerick McKinnon of Kansas City, he's another goal line guy. I mean, when they're near the goal line, especially if Pacheco's not playing, I like McKinnon a lot, but make sure that Pacheco's not playing. And then, the other guys we talked about, like, everybody from Rashad White of Tampa Bay, who's now becoming really relevant in fantasy. I mean, he's receiving catches and he's rushing at least 20 attempts a game. I like him a lot. And then, the biggest name running back that no one drafted except me is Kareem Williams of the Rams. I mean, this guy's the real deal.
Did you actually draft him?
Drafted in our dynasty league, yeah.
Oh, in the dynasty league, sure, yeah. But
yeah,
still, that's a great pick.
But I did draft him in other leagues. When he came out of Florida or Notre Dame, excuse me.
Notre Dame, yep.
And he actually, like, no one knew who he was except me. But he was hurt.
I knew who he was.
He was hurt. He was on the DL for a long time, and he didn't play. And then I knew to stash this guy, and they play Washington this week at home, and I think he'll have a huge game.
So what about how about Jaylen Warren? Is he a start or a sit?
I hate Pittsburgh offense. I try to stay away from Warren or Harris or Pickett or all those guys. I mean, they're all steak. I mean, they're not going to win you anything.
There's not a
lot. I mean, if you're stuck with Warren, then start him. But you're talking running back 3. You're talking like this desperate situation. But stay away from those guys.
In Jacob Andrews' question, if he had Jaylen Warren, he starts over Miles Sanders or Algier. But it's not by much.
No, I like Algiers. Atlanta's trying to win that. Atlanta is in New Orleans are fighting for that one playoff spot in that division.
Right. They can see we'll see if a division winner can win with being 2 games under 500.
I think Ty Chandler should have an okay game for Minnesota. He's kind of way down on the list. They're playing Cincinnati. Your boy Madison is not going to. If he plays, he won't get the ball too much.
Yep.
I think Chandler's going to be their running back in the future. And then I'm trying to think who else I like. Devin Secretary of Houston. I think they're done with Pierce. I think Secretary's their guy.
Singletary.
Singletary, yeah. And then I don't know. This
I'm just going to add one to the mix, and this should be obvious as a start, but I think there's a lot of people who were so down on Joe Mixon, and then when Burrow went down, they forgot about him.
Yeah.
But if you look at what he's doing, first of all, Browning's looking good, but Mixon is a great start right now. So
Mixon's been catching the ball. He's been rushing the ball. The offensive line's blocking for him, and I think Browning. He doesn't look to throw the ball deep. He looks for the 10-yard passes. Chase goes out for the button hook and he'll throw it to him. And Mixon does the same thing. I mean, they'll do screen passes, they'll do slants, but they're not throwing deep much with Browning. They're using the short game right now, which is great.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's say other people are in a spot that's similar to Jacob, and they're looking for guys that might even be available, like on the wire.
Okay.
One guy that I'm looking at is Deontay Foreman. I know I said the Bears is a crowded backfield, and it is. I'm not saying this is a great start, but if you're desperate, a guy like Deontay Foreman is not a bad play. Algier is another one, by the way. He's only 49% rostered. Who else would you mention as guys that you may want to look at if you're in a desperate spot? Chandler is a great example because Madison's probably going to be out, and he's below the radar. I just think a lot of people don't know he's there.
I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I would look into if he's still available. So it was Chase Brown, the backup for Cincinnati. He's been tearing it up. I mean, the Bengals have to give him more handoffs. Chase Brown, I love. He's the rookie from Colorado. Just trying to think who else I kind of like that you can pick up. Antonio Gibson of Washington, Brian Robinson's banged up a little bit. I think Antonio's going to get some more action, especially against the Rams. So I like Gibson a lot. He could be available in some leagues.
Mm-hmm.
And Casey loves Tyjae Spears of Tennessee. He loves this rookie out of Tulane.
I know he's been talking trash on Derrick Henry all season.
I mean, I love Derrick Henry too, but I think Spears is not a bad pickup if he's available. And I mean, it gets thin with running backs. The running back position, as we said at the end of the year, you're not going to win your league with the running back. You're going to win your league with the wide receiver because running backs aren't it's not the mid 90s with.
I mean, everybody's got a committee. There's injuries happening all the time. One guy I would want on my bench for the fantasy playoffs, definitely not starting him, but I'd want him on my bench is Rico Dowdle, the backup of in a great offense.
Yeah,
it can win you the league. I mean, if you've got an extra rest spot and you don't know what's going, who to pick up a guy like Rico Dowdle. He's obviously not somebody you want to start right now unless you're totally desperate. But if Pollard goes down, he could be a major difference.
He comes in like the third drive of the third drive Dallas has. Rico plays the whole drive. I mean, he'll be in there.
Right. So he's also not totally irrelevant.
No. He'll get like 10. He'll get like 10 or 12 attempts. He will.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously it's thin, but a guy like that can set you up for success and you got to remember you don't need your fifth wide receiver who you're never going to play. Get guys who are going to make a difference. All right, Ross, let's divert to, I want to go to Dynasty for a second because these teams are looking at their draft picks and talking about who's going to go high in the draft. If you're in a Dynasty league, and you've got, let's say you got the third pick in the draft. Tell me what you're looking at in terms of the first, second, and third. There's a lot of talk about where Marvin Harrison Jr. should go. There's talk about Caleb is kind of the presumed number one, but is that still the case?
That's a great question. I was all into Caleb beginning of the season.
Everybody was.
I'm not all into him anymore. I like Marvin Harrison. I think is going to stay. I don't think he's going to leave. I don't think he'll be drafted. I think he'll stay because he can make more money.
Oh, you think he's not going to come out this year?
I don't think so. You know why? Is because he's going to make $21 million staying in college. NIL. Oh $21 million. If he signs a deal with the NFL, he's not going to make $21 million.
You're right.
He's not going to go against college kids either. So he can stay in school. He can be the big man on campus. He can do endorsement deals. He can do everything else he wants. And it's opening. I mean, I don't know how much TV you watch, but you see a lot of these college athletes are like promoting products on TV that was never allowed till now.
It's totally different now.
I mean, it's so different. But Marvin Harrison, I don't know if he's going to leave. I have a feeling he won't. And Bo Nix, who's like a super senior, who's 25 years old, he's coming back for his super senior season. Yeah. I mean, he's playing again. I mean, it's like these guys never. Why leave?
It really
have to.
It really has changed what's going to happen. And people are they're going to stay in college longer for sure because of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Khalib's going to be he'll be picked probably number one in most leagues. Yes, in Dynasty. That's the end.
I think he probably will be.
But I mean,
now I will say this from a Dynasty perspective. Usually, I would be very up on this, but in both of my Dynasty leagues, I have no first round picks, and I'm competing like towards the top. The competing towards the top is great, but it means I don't actually have as good a beat on this class. One guy I've had my eye on for a long time is Travion Henderson, just a beast of a running back.
Ohio State, I like him too. You can't go wrong with Ohio State running backs. I think wide receivers especially too. They're unbelievable.
Well, it's the same thing you said with the Pac-10. It's like these offenses are playing more similar pro offenses.
Yeah, Pac-12. It's sad. It's the last season of the Pac-12 in basketball now. It's sad that we won't be a Pac-12 anymore.
It is crazy.
There's two teams left: Oregon State and Washington State, and who knows? They'll probably be in the Mountain West or some stupid conference. Who knows? But I mean, it's kind of sad. I mean, remember, I'll digress because I like doing this. Remember back when we were younger and we watched bowl games and the players all played. I mean, everybody was out there playing, like running back, quarter. Now it's like half the team doesn't even play anymore because they're either going pro or they're all going pro, and they don't want to play. They don't care about their school. There's no school pride. They just care about themselves. I get it.
Yep.
But I mean, you work all season to make these bowl games, and like the bowl season starts on Saturday, and like UCLA, like half their team isn't even playing. I mean, they're either transfer portal. When we do the transfer portal, you're not playing, which is a lot of players, or you're going pro, and it adds up, and it ruins the whole reason to watch these games. I mean, you're not seeing your favorite player playing. It's a joke
for sure,
and it makes me, it's just college football is ruined forever. Just so you know.
All right. On that note, we're going to switch back to pro drafts for next year. There's plenty of players, fantasy players, who they're out of the playoffs now. And we know what that's like. We live and breathe this stuff. It's hard to have nothing you feel like you can do. So sometimes you want to turn to next season. You want to think about where these players are going to go. So I'm gonna name a player, and I want you to tell me where they would go, what round they'll go,
and what the 12-man league in a
12 team
redraft.
12 team redraft standard league.
PPR. Okay, standard.
We'll do let's do half PPR.
Okay, thank you. Okay, got it.
All right. So
12 team.
CJ Stroud, where is he going to go next?
CJ Stroud, he'll go in the second round.
I think that's a good call, but is it a good pick to pick him in the second round?
It just depends. Best player available, and I have him above Mahomes next year. I in my ratings, I have him up. I'd rather have Stroud than Mahomes. The only other quarterback I like more than Stroud would either be Hurts.
Well, the amazing thing is, Stroud has
Stroud's
a better
a top 5
cast.
Yeah, Stroud's a top 5 guy, top 3 guy in my book. I mean,
he's currently 4th, I think, in ranking it, and Brock Montana is 5th.
Yeah.
So tell me, how about Brock Montana? Where does he go?
5th or 6th round.
Okay, so now that's interesting because CJ Stroud is currently like 1 point ahead of Brock Purdy in our.
Remember, CJ Stroud didn't throw an interception until like week 9. I mean, he was 300 yards every week. I mean, Brock Montana had some lows and some highs, but Brock could go up. If the Niners win the Super Bowl, he'll be a top 3 round guy. He'll move up.
The thing is, though, it's a great point, Ross, but if you think about it, it should make no difference whether he wins the Super Bowl or not. You want to see how he's going to perform from a fantasy.
Yeah, but you want to take a popular, if you're a fantasy team, fantasy players usually want to take a popular.
Okay, where does Jordan Love go?
10th, 11th round, 12th.
Okay, now let's
he barely hits the top 12.
All right, but that's true. So what if we change it to Superflex? Let's go through those guys
Superflex,
again.
whole different thing.
Superflex, okay? CJ Stroud, Superflex.
First round.
Okay. Brock Montana, Superflex.
Second round.
Patrick Mahomes, Superflex.
People do it first round, but I would stay away. I think he's until the Chiefs invest in some receivers that can catch the ball, and then yes, but they have the worst drop rate of any team in history. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, no one can catch the ball
aside from Kelsey. And Kelsey's having
he's too involved with that with his girlfriend, whatever.
It's like in The Natural. He's dating this great
girl.
He's
35. He's dating a
it's exactly like The Natural.
But the girl's the same age as him. They're relatively the same age.
That's true. Okay, so Justin Herbert, we know he just got hurt.
He's banned from any teams I have. That's my trigger. You just hit my trigger.
Oh, I'm
right
sorry.
Now.
Oh my God. I had no idea.
Herbert's the biggest baby in football, underachiever, all this hype. He's not very good.
But I thought he's been great.
I mean, how many fingers I've broken on my hands in my career? I've broken almost every finger.
Yeah, no, listen, I was playing basketball the other night. One of our group members in the group that I run broke his hand and didn't even know it. He just kept playing.
Yeah, he keeps playing. Yeah, I've had major injury. And this guy breaks his little finger and he's out for the season. Come on, wake up.
I mean, he did play really well before he got hurt, though, from a fantasy
Herbert
standpoint,
to me is just never you heard it from me first. I'm never drafting him in any of my teams ever again. He's
all right.
banned.
Jordan Love, where is he going to get drafted next year?
In a super draft, redraft, 12-team league?
Superflex, yes.
Round 2 or 3.
And how about Trevor Lawrence?
2 or 3.
Yeah, 3 sounds right to me.
Yeah, I mean he's another guy that all the hype and then didn't produce.
Yep. How about Kirk Cousins?
I
Assuming
love
he's back.
Kirk Cousins. I don't know if you ever watched the show on Netflix, the quarterback show.
Oh, you told me about this.
They
Yeah, yeah.
previewed him, Mahomes, and Mariota, the backup in Philadelphia, and he comes out just smelling like a rose. I mean, you just want to be his biggest fan.
Good guy.
Kirk Cousins, 3rd or 4th round. I think he's dropping because of he's hurt. He's not in the news. No one's talking about him.
All right, let's move to wide receiver.
He's 36 years old.
Let's move to wide receiver. Tyreek Hill's going to go in the first round, obviously, but would you pick him number 1 in a super flex league?
No, I would not pick him. McCaffrey proved to me that he's the number 1 pick in fantasy football right now.
And so you'd even pick McCaffrey over Josh Allen in a super flex league?
It'll be close. It'd be close.
It would be close, but
I would take. I mean, I like Allen. Allen's stats he's had best stats of any quarterback right now. But I mean, in fantasy. But I mean, he Buffalo to me, it's just they just can't. They can't win.
I got to take down this shirt. It's just cursing them.
I mean, it's just the whole month of December is just like a playoff.
I need to get a Dallas
every game.
And,
okay, guys, we got to win this game. We're not making the playoffs. You said that last week. Okay, guys, we got to win this game. We got to win this game. We're not making the playoffs. You still this 2 weeks. I mean, it never stops. I mean, every week it's like something else. They had to beat Dallas. They had to beat this team. They had to beat that. It just never stops.
Okay, back to standard leagues. 1 quarterback. Let's say half PPR, 12 team.
Yeah.
Where does Amon-Ra St. Brown go?
5th round.
Really? That's
he dropped a little bit. His stats. I don't know if you've been paying attention to him.
I have, but I wouldn't buy into that much.
Just dropping. Detroit's another team that's been like not playing well.
Yeah. Okay. How about Puka? Where's Puka going to go next year?
3rd, 4th round.
All right. And how about
3rd round?
How about Keenan Allen?
Ooh.
Long in the tooth, which makes people
every year I count him out. I would take him. I would definitely take him if he's available in the 4th round. I'm taking him. Even more.
Exactly the round I was going to say, 4th round.
Yeah, I mean, if he's available, I take him. I mean, I go best player available, but I think people are going to think the same way you think. Is he's long in the tooth?
Well, that's not actually the way I think. That's what
I know. I'm just using your example, but I just don't know much. People look at age and they discriminate. They really do. But I think Allen has some more years in him, so I would take him in the 4th round.
All right. How about Stephon Diggs?
First of all, I have him this year. I want to get rid of him. He's on my dynasty team. I want to figure a way to trade him to some idiot. But his head is just not it. He's not in it. I mean, his head's not there. He's getting frustrated. I think he wants to be traded. He said it before the season.
I actually think he is going to end up on a different team.
I do too.
But this is why I wouldn't trade him in dynasty.
He's a great receiver, though. I'm telling you.
I think he's going to thrive when he goes somewhere else.
I think you're probably right. But
I would hold on to him in dynasty.
And every week, it's just like he's killing me in dynasty. He really is. And I have Gabe Davis too. I started him also, and he's another 0. I mean, 0 points.
All right, Deebo Samuel. I know we've talked about him before.
4th round, 4th, 5th round. He had a good game last week. I mean, his health is back,
and the fact that he's doing it again. That if he only did it 1 season, then you might not see him being drafted that highly. But he's now doing it for a 2nd time. All right, Tank Dell. Where can you get him next?
Now, Tank Dell got hurt 2 weeks ago. He's out for the season.
Yep.
Before that, the rookie was having an unbelievable year. I would take a shot with him in the 3rd round. I would.
3rd round? Why? I
think he's a beast. I mean, I like this guy.
I love it. But I think you can get him in the 5th round.
Maybe not with Casey Scheinfeld and
the problem with the stance I'm taking though is if you go into a draft thinking you can get him in the 5th round, it only takes one person to take him, and you won't get him in the 5th round.
Yeah, I mean, I like Tank Dell a lot. I think he'll be fully recovery. I like what he was doing before he got hurt. I want to take this guy early. You want to get guys on their way up. You don't want to get guys on the way down.
That's right.
And you can't play fantasy football looking at last year's stats. You want to look at potential, how many yards this guy can have. Stroud loves them. And Nico Collins is the other. I like to do a double Nico Collins and Tank Dell combination. That'd be a good one.
That is a good one. And if you pair him with their quarterback, you got a stack, which you and I both love. How about Jalen Waddle? I mean, he's really had a down year from a touchdown perspective at the very least.
I mean, I love Waddle before the season started. It's
Me
just,
too.
it's just a disappointing season. You can bounce back if you can get him in the 5th or 6th round. Take him.
That's the way I think. That's the way I think you have to build your.
I'm not taking him in the 3rd round. I'm not taking him.
No,
in the 4th round.
but if you can get a guy like Waddle in the 6th round, let's say,
yes, I would draft him immediately.
That's
yes.
a no-brainer as far as
I love Waddle. I love how he plays football. I mean, and he has to get the ball more.
All right, let's do a little bit of running backs and we'll wrap up on this. Kyron Williams, what round?
That's a great question. So you're talking about redraft.
12-team league, standard 0.5 people.
I have him in the. I'll take him in the 2nd round.
I mean, he's the third. He's the third.
There's McCaffrey, right? Okay, there's McCaffrey. He's going to be the number 1 running back, right?
Right.
Who's your number 2 running back?
My number 2 running back is probably Etienne. Going into next year because he's still young and he's got a big share.
I love I love that guy. I mean I love it.
But it could be Kyron Williams. I mean, he could be legitimately number 2.
I mean, it's not Eckler anymore. Eckler's off my charts.
No,
I'm not taking Eckler in the 1st or 2nd round or 3rd. He's down in the 4th or 5th round.
I mean, I still would be tempted to take Bijan Robinson over Kyron Williams, but in some ways, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
If Arthur Smith gets fired in Atlanta and they said, "Okay, we're committing to you,
turn this loose,
and you're getting the ball 22 times a game."
I'll tell you who a running back that's probably going to be on my rosters in a lot of leagues is Rachaad White, though. I mean, people just they still don't recognize him. I don't think enough. I mean, he is the 6th best running back in fantasy sports.
Yeah, he went to a great college too.
A great college in Arizona. Yeah. I'm sorry, I needed to say it because Casey's not here. He would say it every time.
Arizona State, yeah.
It was Arizona State. But I mean, he's catching the ball a ton, and he's in an offense where he just has a big share of the pie. One question I have is where do the Miami running backs go? And of course, some of that depends on whether Mostert is even there next year. Like
Mostert's having a great year because he stayed healthy this year. You see the difference when he's healthy and he's not.
16 touchdowns this year. Actually, 18 because he's got 2.
Every year he was getting hurt. His legs were made out of paper mache, and for some reason, he's doing something right.
He stayed away from the Cleveland Browns trainers.
A-Train is a rookie. He's still in that rookie contract. He's not going anywhere.
Oh no, he'll be there. I'm just wondering what will happen with Mostert. I don't know. I don't even know what his contract situation is, honestly, but I just know how the NFL is about running backs.
I don't know how many years he signed. If it's a 1-year deal, he'll get an offer.
He's going to get a big offer from somewhere.
Yeah, he'll go somewhere,
and they'll let him go. But if he's a starting running back, where does he go? What round would you take him? I mean, he's been a monster. Yeah.
I don't trust him that much, 5th or 6th round.
Yeah, because of injuries, and you also don't know what team he'll be.
Yes.
How about Derrick Henry? Mm-hmm. Derrick Henry, to me, it's tough to figure taking him.
I think because he's 30 years old next. He's in his 30s. It's like Logan's Run. You're 30, you're dead. I would probably take Derrick Henry if I could get him in the 4th round.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
If I can, I'm not going to waste the 2nd or 3rd round.
All right, one more I'll ask you. Let's go with Breece Hall. Where are you going to take him?
Huge disappointment. I mean, this guy can't get yards.
But keep in mind,
I don't know what's going on.
They have no quarterback really.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Breece Hall is going to be just fine.
I love Breece Hall. I would take a chance on him in the 5th or 6th. I would try to wait till the 6th round to take him. I wouldn't waste.
I don't think you're going to get him in the 6th round, but I would take him in the 5th.
I mean, Barkley for the Giants has gone. I mean, he's like a 3rd round guy now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's dropped tremendously. I mean, running backs, they drop quickly. I mean, you got to move quickly on them. I mean, and there's some really good running backs coming out next year in college. I mean, there's
and running backs take over very fast. All right, This has been a great discussion, Ross. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. Guys, keep your comments coming. We're going to be here same time next week. That's 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on Thursdays. Ross and Casey do their waiver wire show, but of course, it's not really a waiver wire show at this point in the season. In a way, they talk about players you can pick up, but
players you can start.
It's picked pretty dry. Now it's more start sit.
Yeah, I mean, you're middle of playoffs. I mean, you want to make some hard decisions who to start and who to bench because there's no bye weeks. Bye weeks are done. So
exactly,
you can use anybody you have on your roster.
So tune in Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Ross, it's been great being here with you. It's been great being here with you all. Keep the comments coming, and good luck in the playoffs, everybody. We'll keep the information